Don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm a train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done.
Do you think at this point now they send us the money, put up 4 cardboard cutouts, play the record, and everybody will be happy?
Well, it's been 15 years since you did this one. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Hold on.
Can you tell that is Tommy Makem? And Paddy Clancy? And Liam Clancy? And I'm twice the man I was. Tom Clancy.
And it's no day never. No day never, no. Will I play the Wild Rover?
Lincoln Center, New York.
May 20th, 1984.
The reunion concert.
The Clancy brothers and Tommy Makem.
And I spent all my money on whiskey and beer. But now I return with gold in great store. And I never will play the Wild Rover no more. And it's no day never. No day never, no more. Will I play the Wild Rover? No, never, no more.
They just reached a lot of people, with their exuberance and their attitude.
Bob Dylan, an old friend from 20 years ago.
Other than that, they're all great singers. They were all so different, too, weren't
I
they?
asked her for credit, she answered me nay. Such a custom as yours I can get any day.
Mary Travis. I wonder where
What
Peter
was
and
it?
Paul are.
It was a quality between them, a desire to give and take, a lack of ego when it came to singing together.
No, never, no more.
They were 4 recognizable human beings, fallible human beings, who, clearly they weren't watching every step they made. Clearly, even though they were thoroughly professional.
So that's what Tom Paxton looks like without his cap.
Hollywood.
It's no day never. 1, 2, 3. No day never, no more. Will I play?
Well, I'd never heard those kind of songs before, although I close up, I'd heard them on records, but I hadn't heard them close up. All the legendary people they used to sing about, the Brennan on the Moor or Roddy McCorley or these people, I wasn't aware of them when they existed, but it was as if they just existed yesterday.
It's somewhat ironic, but true, that the most popular Irish singing group in the 1960s, the Clancy brothers and Tommy Makem, got their first break not in Ireland, but right here in America. Right now, they're rehearsing for their upcoming reunion concert to be given here in New York City. Liam, Tom, and Paddy Clancy, the 3 brothers from County Tipperary, and their friend Tommy Makem. Okay, just cross that out. And County Armagh, right?
Just another television show, lads.
You guys are great. Try one. You're gonna cue me?
Yeah, I'll cue you. What I'll do is you'll hear rolling, and then I'll give the cue action.
How many would this be now?
Countless. But the first one was the Ed Sullivan Show, which was probably the biggest influence of all.
2 minutes to showtime. If you want to go to the toilet, it's too late now.
Under him a blunderbuss from underneath her cloak, were young Brennan on the moor.
The counties of Tipperary and Armagh, the thrilling voices of the Clancy brothers.
Now with this loaded blunderbuss.
And Tommy Makem had. 1961, The Ed Sullivan Show.
100 pounds was offered for his apprehension there. So he went horse and saddle to the mountains did repair. Dead young Brennan on the moor.
Our following was mostly people who were interested in folk music. They weren't Irish-oriented in any way. Most of them were probably Jewish, all nationalities. And the Irish didn't take any notice of us because there were specifically Irish places where the Irish entertainment went on, and we never played in those places. But the Ed Sullivan Show, once they saw us on that, it was like getting a blessing from the Pope. All the Irish Catholics in America would come to our concerts thereafter. The day after the Ed Sullivan Show, we had to go out to Chicago to do shows at the Playboy Club. And Tom and I were walking down the street looking for digs, and we had the sweaters around our shoulder. And we were none in Chicago at all. And one fella said to us, shouted, "Hey boys, I saw you last night, you were great." Tom turned to me and said, "Hey, we're famous."
Back to our beginnings.
The banks of the river Suir.
County Tipperary, Ireland.
Isn't there a Shakespearean song that refers to the young girl of the river Suir?
Carrick-on-Suir may. It had the Shakespearean scholars puzzled for centuries to try and find out what Carrick-on-Suir may meant, until they discovered it was an old Irish song, which means Colleen Og, I am a young girl, Costura may, from the banks of that river Suir.
Castles are sacked in war. Chieftains are scattered far. Truth is a fixed star. Eileen Aroon. It's true, isn't it?
It's amazing how fast it all happens. When you think that over in that dungeon there, when we were kids, the manacles were still on the wall. The patches of blood stained into the limestone. And we used to be looking at that. I mean, that's not that long ago. Terrible now to think of the damage that we did while we were playing games around this place, you know.
All the ladies are coming to see her. Mary the money, she's getting so funny, she won't be let up in St. Patrick's Day. She's pairing a brass for the buy a jack, ask her to bring her to mass on a Sunday. Wallflower, throwing up so high. He had the measles, he'll never die. Call to Tommy Makem's house, he has no relation.
Wasn't that where Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's wife, was born?
That's right. Fellow wrote it in his essay in school. Anne Boleyn was born in the Ormond Castle in Carrick-on-Suir while her mother was on a visit to London.
And now, there was no woods on that when I was growing up. All you could see was the rock, the bare rock with the caves in it.
There was hazel trees. We used to go out there and pick hazelnuts because the fire was in our head.
But look at see the island below. Swimming out to that. We used to go down there and get a stick, steal forks out of the kitchen and tie the fork to the end of the stick. Remember walking down there and lifting the stones, and you see the eel's head peering out from under the thing, and you get him right behind the neck.
You cruel thing. They made a lovely supper.
We got a sleep down.
Farewell to you, my own true love.
Tommy Makem's Irish Pavilion is just around the corner from the old Blue Angel where we played in the early days. And it was an ideal spot for a rehearsal for the big night at Lincoln Centre.
But I know that I'll return someday.
Cady now, that's moved from Makem's in 57th Street, New York, to Makem's in Cady, County Armagh, the hub of the universe. That's Pat McQuillan, was a neighbour, and he was passing by, and I said, "We're going to have to go through the town, Pat." And Pat says, "Why did you get up on the horse here and we'll drive through the town?"
You mean when we lived in that one, didn't you?
Was in with your mother and father every day.
I was raised there.
Cup of tea.
I was born in a house along here, but they did away with these houses and put in this
high back.
nice on the batter. What's that car puller over there? There's the garage.
Well, so high
I went to work.
You
Yeah,
served your time there, did you?
I did. I worked in the
in the office in there.
Did you, Tom?
Oh, for years and years, Pat. For years and years. After I left school.
Right.
My first job there.
Is that your first job?
Aye.
So fare thee well, my own true love, and when I return, united we will be.
So fare thee well, my own true love. This is the town of Carrick-on-Suir in Tipperary that we bid our farewells to so many years ago.
But that was down where we've come from was the north gate of the town. This is where we were all born.
I was born in that room up there. I don't know where the rest of
I
you
was
were
born in that room there.
And I'm told I was born in the front room.
And of course, we used to rush out of here on Sunday mornings up to Mass. And they say the nearer the church, the more you're late for Mass. And we were always late. This is St. Nicholas's Church in St. Nicholas's Parish, of course.
It's one of the few churches which is really realistic about passing the collection plate because you can see the dollar sign over the door. So you know what's expected when you walk in. This entire street shakes with the sound of that bell. And our lives were, to a great extent, regulated by that. Births, deaths, marriages. You always knew whether it was a man or a woman because it was two
for a woman and 3 for a man.
Oh, the sun is on the harbour lawn, and I wish I could remain, for I know it will be some long time before I
Bridge Street. I used to work on Moan's Bar here, do you know that?
That's right, I heard now.
After I left the garage, I was working
I used to walk.
on Moan's Bar.
Well, how's life?
See, I'm used to being back here.
Oh, yes, your old stand.
Do you remember
No
when I
change.
was here?
Well, remember
Well,
well,
here,
Tommy.
Tommy,
Yes.
the trouble is today, you have no wee bit of an apron on you.
No, but
You would need it, you need a wee bit. Maybe she'd give you one.
Eileen give me one
Yeah,
after a while.
That's for sure.
No,
Yeah.
many today. But do you remember they knocked them down? Do you mind Mary Toners across the
In
way?
Christ I do, I'm not joking.
You got your tea there, man.
You would, sure.
I got many's a good song off her.
I'm sure you did, Tommy.
A lot of good dare new songs.
Yeah.
And Roseanne, she was one of the
Yeah,
girls.
she was one of the
Roseanne.
Where do you want me to go now?
Down the town. Now that fella let you go through. Now the boy's still landing on the monument.
This was the center of our universe, wasn't it? This little area around here, these streets.
We were within shouting distance of our mother. That was the important thing about this area.
Of course, the important things in life happened here too. The weddings, the christenings, the
Funerals.
deaths, the funerals.
I carried many a coffin in that gate.
Well, we all
Many a
carried
relative.
We all carried our father and mother in through there. We were in here at the christenings of all our nieces and nephews.
Countless nieces.
Times too, when this town was much wilder than it is now. I remember a fierce husband and wife fight that went all the way down the main street, across New Street, up William Street. And I remember the entire town was behind them by the time they got here. And the sergeant of the guards coming up and trying to separate them, the husband and wife. And he hit the husband a belt, at which point the wife pulled up her dress and took a poker up out of her stocking and went for the guard for interfering in their love fight.
There wasn't a woman in Wexford County Dry. She loved her husband dearly, but another man twice as well. Now when me right a little Lerdo, and me right a Lauralee. So she fed the legs and ran a bones and made him something more. It wasn't so very long after that he couldn't see the wall. Now when me right a little Lerdo, and me right a Lauralee. Says he, I'd go and drown myself, but that might be a sin.
I mean, you're doing a concert up in the Holy Mother.
Do you?
Oh, did I do?
I was telling
I
fortunes.
know that. You were telling fortunes.
I
That was
was
the story.
dressed up like an Indian,
Like an Indian, that's right. Lord, that's a long time ago.
reading people's palms and
Sure,
reading the
yes.
cards for them.
That's a
And they
far way.
believed everything I
They
told them.
believed all.
It's my great pleasure tonight on behalf of the people of Katy to give a hearty welcome to Tommy Makem. So put your hands together, give a big welcome to Tommy.
That's the old show band I used to sing with before I went off to the green fields of America. They're called the Clippertones. And I met Jim Hughes on the street and he said, "Will you come down and do a gig with us?" I said, "I'd be delighted, Jim."
We used to go every Saturday night to the dance in the City Hall in Armagh. One of the boys from Katy, now not like the rest of us, he was a bit shy, couldn't talk to the girls at all. So we put him in training one time for a fortnight. And you have to say something nice to her to get the conversation started. Tell her she has lovely hair, or she's wearing a beautiful dress, or she's a smashing dancer, or something nice to get the conversation started. We hammered it into him for a fortnight, and after the fortnight we went to the dance. And of course all the Katy boys was watching him, you see how he was going to do. And he got up enough courage to ask this girl to dance, and they're out dancing in the middle of the floor. And one of the boys from Katy always stayed near him to hear what he was going to say to the girl. And he was overheard to say, "You know, for a fat girl you don't sweat too much."
I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that old story, Tommy. The first time I heard you tell it was out in San Francisco in 1961.
And I told it many's and many's a time, but I was just bringing it all back home again to where it started.
Played around this old town to dawn.
Summer's almost gone, winter's coming on. Done played around this old town too long, and I feel like I've got to travel on. We'll go up Chapel Street here, Pat.
Don't catch him.
There's a big ship sailing on the Illy-Alley-O, the Illy-Alley-O, the Illy-Alley-O. There's a big ship sailing on the Illy-Alley-O. Hi-ho, the Illy-Alley-O. There's a big ship sailing.
It was a great place for whipping tops.
And rolling hoops.
And then in the winter time, down the street, we'd put the water down and it would freeze.
And the night would be frosty.
Have a skate.
We'd have a skate down the street. I learned to cycle a bicycle here.
Sunday mornings then after Mass, this was a great spot for pitch and toss. I remember all the lads out there with the two halfpennies on a bit of a stick, throwing them up, heads or tails.
Ahem! My mother has gone to church. She told me not to play with you because you're in the dirt. It isn't because you're dirty, it isn't because you're clean, it's because you have the whooping cough and eat margarine.
We were a cheerful bunch of kids. This last Christmas, the three of us were back in our hometown in County Tipperary. And we went out on St. Stephen's Day with a ram.
On the morning of St. Stephen's Day, the day after Christmas, we used to go out with a little dead bird in the holly bush. We'd dress ourselves up with any of our mother's clothes or any unusual clothes we could get, blacken our faces. And we had a holly bush that we'd decorate with ribbons and papers. And we'd go around to the neighbours like that, disguised and with the dead bird in the bush, and we'd sing the Wren song and collect money for and they used to go, "The wren, the king of all birds, St. Stephen's Day was cutting the furs. Although he was little, his honour was great. Jump up, me lads, and give us a trait. As I was going to kill and all, I met a wren upon the wall. Up on me wattle and knocked him down and brought him into Carrick-town.
Rolling, where's your nest? Is in the bush that I love best. In the tree, the holly tree, where all the boys do follow me.
Up with the kettle and down with the pan, and give us a penny to bury the rat. I followed the rat 3 miles or more, 3 miles or more, 3 miles or more. Followed the rat 3 miles or more at 6 o'clock in the morning. I had the little box under my arm, under my arm, under my arm. I had the little box under my arm, a penny or tones and do it no harm. Mrs. Clancy's a very good woman, a very good woman, a very good woman. Mrs. Clancy's a very good woman, she give us a penny to bury the rat. Penny to bury the rat, ma'am.
Of course, up in Katy, County Armagh, where I was bred and buttered, as I say as well, we had we did Silent Night and Adeste Fidelis, but we also had a hymn like for all seasons. It went up the long ladder and down the short roof to hell with King Billy and God bless the Pope. If that doesn't do, we'll tear them in two and we'll send them to hell with these red, white and blue.
This is where we got our Bonine sweaters now.
Some of them anyway.
Some of them, yeah, look at them, they're beautiful.
How
are you?
Hello,
How are you?
You're marvelous.
The first ones came from here.
Try it here.
Up the long ladder and down the short rope to hell with King Billy and God bless the Pope. If that doesn't do, we'll tear him in two and we'll send him to hell with his red, white and blue.
Charlie.
If there's a free sweater, Tommy is going to be there.
Oh, I'm never too far away, lad. You look lovely, Tommy. Thank you. I didn't think you cared.
We're all rigged out for Lincoln Center.
Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome back to New York the Clancy brothers and Tommy Makem.
It's of a brave young highwayman, the story we will tell. His name was William Brennan, and in Ireland he did well. 'Twas on the Kilworth mountains he commenced his wild career, and many a well-been Norman before him shook with fear. And it's Brennan on the moor, Brennan on the moor, bold, brave and undaunted was young Brennan on the moor. One day upon the highway as Willie he went down.
There it is by the Grand City Hall in New York, as the song says.
Mary knew his features, and he said, young man, said he.
Waiting and waiting and waiting for the mayor. I suppose you always have to wait to see a mayor.
Our old friend Ed Koch.
Remember when we sang for you?
You sang so many times.
Yeah. Remember what we sang? In the year of our Lord 1806, we set sail from the cold Quay of Cork. We were sailing away.
We've known him since he began his political career. He and I started out many years ago in New York to get a little park built down by the Hudson River. When we met him here at City Hall, he said to me, Tom, I'm the mayor now. Is there anything you need done?
Put the hands up.
Here we go.
His wife had gone to town, provisions for to buy. And when she saw her Willie, she...
Well, that was the next best thing to a civic reception, lads.
A lot different from the first time we ever arrived in New York City.
When we went first, Paddy Casey, my brother Tom and myself, the three of us, on that ship, the Marine Flasher, from Southampton to New York, we had no address in Canada, and we had a visa for Canada. We had no notion of what kind of a job we might get, who we might meet, or what the place was going to be like. And we had a very small amount of money. We probably had enough to keep us going for 3.5 weeks. Now you take with you, right, a photograph of your mother or your family or what have you. You take your toothbrush. You take a pen, and you might have a little whiskey if you were lucky, right? But mostly you have a fluttering heart. You were a week on that ship. It was a little community, it was nice, but then the moment had to come, and you always knew it was inevitable there would come that you had to walk down that gangplank and leave that ship. And then you're on your own. We had to get a train from New York to Toronto, and didn't have one address. And when we got off the train and all the people got out, got their bags, got into taxis, started going off in their own direction, we just stood there. We had no address and nowhere to go. Tom went and had a haircut. I don't know why, but that's what he did. Anyway, there was a barber shop in the railway station. Walked out of the railway station. Now, I could have turned left, right, or straight ahead. They were the only roads open. I went straight ahead, and I walked for about half a mile, and I came to a little dinky hotel, and I went in, and they had a room. We slept that night in that room, and we had plans the following morning to go out and get a place to live and jobs and find out how to live in North America.
Rise, Willie, rise still, and it's Brennan on the moor. Brennan on the moor, boy, brave and undaunted was young Brennan on the moor.
Greenwich Village, New York City, USA was a great place to start off. It was the Mecca for the young actors and artists. Anyone striving to make it in New York City in the arts had to start off in Greenwich Village.
This little theater behind us here played a great role in the beginnings of our performing in New York. Paddy, my brother Paddy, and I came to New York in around 1951. And my first experience with this little theatre behind us is I produced and directed the Othello.
Tradition Records office, we had that down a few blocks down the street here too. And at night, planning what recordings we were going to put out, I would sit in there and at night I'd be writing it down and planning what we were going to do the following day, you know, what LPs we were going to put out, planning folk music. And at night when we had a few drinks, we used to tear into a few songs, you know.
Paddy and I had quite a good repertoire of the old songs. We didn't consider them folk songs, we just songs that we knew. And with other performers, we performed here on Saturday night. The Midnight Special, I think we called it.
1959, Liam Clancy and myself were in a play. We were a play of Paul Vincent Carroll's called Shadow and Substance. We were playing two priests. And a couple of men came to see us one night and said they were opening a folk club down the village. And we were living in the village at the time. And the folk club was to be called Gerdy's Fifth Peg. It later became known as Gerdy's Folk City.
You were around them all the time, and they just sang so many songs all the time. You couldn't help. But the first album I made, there was one song on it that it was an old song from I'd heard on an old banjo record someplace. But I did that song the way the Clancy brothers, I thought, would have done it. You know, if in their style.
Ireland was a very inhibiting place at that time, and could be still. There's a whole lot of repressions. You know, so much would have been repressed. Coming here to Greenwich Village, you could see yourself just walking around the streets today. There's a freedom. There are no social mores to which you have to conform, either cultural, sexual, sartorial. Anything went.
With a burning bush above its bobble top, and with lads O'Toole's to split them up.
My great ambition was to be an actor. I went from here and did some television shows in New York when they were doing live theatre on television.
Oh, Mr. Finn, you're going to be fined again. Ha, 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 Mr. Fun, you're going to be Mr. Finn again. Ah, but Dim, he stuttered from the lad. Damn, he was good.
Tim Finnegan lived in Walker Street, a gentle Irishman by the hour. He had a brogue so rich and sweet, and the rise in the world he carried a hot.
We did prop each other up, yes. We did. If I ran out of money, I'd get some from him. Maybe if he ran out of money, he'd get some from me. And even if we were in different parts of the world, we'd somehow get in touch with each other. And when we had no money to come back out here after we went home to his sister's wedding, we pooled our money together and we only had enough for one ticket back to America. And at that time, your visa would run out if you didn't come back, see? So we pooled our money, bought one ticket for me, and then I worked 2 jobs in order to send home the money for Tom to get his ticket, you see? Because it'd be years working in Ireland to get the price of the ticket.
There is a backup when you have brothers. There is something that gives you a feeling of being a clan, being a group. And in strength, you get a lot of courage. You don't have to grapple with the individual decisions. You can kick things around and you can talk about the future and you can talk about planning.
When I was sitting down in that office in Tradition Records, Tommy came down and came in one day with his hand in a sling. He was working in a foundry up and over New Hampshire, and some 2 ton of iron or something fell in his hand and he couldn't work. And he was wandering around, and Tommy had the idea too, because he had been acting in that and he'd been in a show band in Ireland. But he wanted to put out an LP. And that gave me the idea, with Tommy, to form the group. This was one of the first we put out.
That was recorded in March of 1956.
In Kenny Goldstein's kitchen.
In the Bronx.
But I never thought when we were doing that record that I was going to be singing at all, because that was only, I think all of us at that time felt that we were going to do other than singing when we did the Rising of the Moon.
Oh yeah, well that was just we were passing through. I remember I was delighted because Paddy paid me $30 for singing a couple of songs.
By the rising of the moon,
sang a rebel song in those days, it wasn't to present any political point of view, except to show that there were interesting songs about what people were doing in Ireland. You know, it was just because it is an interesting human expression. It happened to be in the form of a rebel song, but it could be in the form of a work song, it could be a love song, it could be in any kind of song.
I think the folk songs always told more truth about history than the history books anyway. As somebody said, written history is nothing more than the propaganda of the victor.
For me, I never heard a singer as good as Liam ever. He was just the best ballad singer I'd ever heard in my life. It still is, probably. I don't think I can think of anybody who's a better ballad singer than Liam.
I wish I was in Carrick-on-Suir, only for nights in Ballygrand.
There's always a certain brotherly rivalry between Paddy and Tom, and a resentment of this young brother coming along, being able to play and sing, and somehow bringing the musical side of the group, bringing that into focus. There was a certain resentment. The kid brother, who the hell does he think he is? And we had a lot of fights that way. But that also brought Tommy and I closer.
And I can't swim over, neither have I wings to fly. I wish I could be a handsome boatman to ferry me over to my love.
One pleasant evening in the month of June.
Do you remember when we did that
We
one?
put out this one, drinking songs, which seemed fairly popular. Somehow it seemed much easier to sell songs of drinking because it implied fun, I suppose.
We recorded that in the theatre. You were doing Ulysses. They sang, all the boys came and sang on it. The crowd that used to be at the White Horse.
They did, yes.
There was a great gang at the White Horse at that time, wasn't it?
Just lay me down in my native heat, where the jug of punch at my hand.
We didn't have a style. People kept saying they liked the style you singing. We didn't know what they were talking about. We just sang the songs as loudly as we could because there were four of us there. And Liam got his guitar style because he had a small guitar and there would be one microphone. He'd have to hold the guitar up like this and play it like this so it would be heard to keep us in tune. At one point in our careers, I tried to play the bagpipes. We would play the bagpipes and walk on stage, and then we'd stop the bagpipes and we'd start to sing, and nobody could hear the guitar of the bagpipes, and we'd all out of tune, so we had to give it up.
Bang, bang, and now the storm is over, and we are safe and well. We will go into a public house and we sit and read like hell.
This was the one that we really went professional on. We even had the name, the Clancy Brothers and Tommy.
Oh, and guitars and everything on that.
That was the first time.
That's actually the first time the name the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem was used
on a record.
I'd love to find that piece of paper where we put all the possible group names that we might have.
What do you mean, piece of paper? That was a whole exercise book.
The Beggar Man, the Tinkers. We even tied around there the Chieftains.
Yeah, the Druids, the Moonshiners, everything.
We used to try and do 3 weeks. That it would be 3 weeks of one-night stands and then break. And we did that. We had a rule that we would do that. And we would do that maybe for 6 months. And then at the end of 6 months, we'd stop altogether and go our own separate ways, maybe for a month. And I think that helped when we came back together, it freshened it again. Columbia Records signed us up after we did the Ed Sullivan TV show. They became interested immediately when they saw us on television. And this was the first one of those. In fact, Pete Seeger was on the banjo.
That's the first record that we wore sweaters on. Jewish manager in New York named Marty Ehrlichman. And he thought we had great potential, but he couldn't figure out how to package us. You know, he wanted to package us somehow. And he just didn't know how to do it until he saw these sweaters that our mother had sent us. As soon as he saw the sweaters, he said, "That's it." He said, "That's it. That's exactly what I want."
We rode up through Galway town to seek for recreation. On the 17th of August, we might be elevated. There was multitudes assembled with their tickets at the station. The eyes began to dazzle, and I go to see the races with me whack. All the dope, all the diddly idle.
We just couldn't believe the luck that we had. We couldn't believe the luck of being successful and playing places like the Playboy clubs and going back to Hefner's apartment afterwards and, you know, chasing the bunnies.
You didn't get enough sleep, or you'd be out all night and you'd be talking and yakking and at parties and singing all night, and you'd have to move on the next day to go to someplace else. But it was mostly physical thing. But there was very little mental pain because things just sort of fell together for us.
With me roo-boo-boo, Randy, and me lapstone keeps bitten away.
You'd meet the people who produced the show. You had to go and drink with them after the show, and the late nights and a lot of drinking.
Hey, I'm a rounder, I'm a gander, I'm a long ways from home. And if you don't like me, well, leave me alone. I eat when I'm hungry, I'll drink when I'm dry.
And eventually, the hangovers became very great for me, and I decided at that time that I'd better stop completely on alcohol altogether, and that was 10 years ago, and I haven't had a drink since then. And I find that mornings are a lot better.
And moonshine don't kill me, I live till I die.
Being feted by people like Pat O'Brien, finding that Bing Crosby wanted to record with us and Maureen O'Hara wanted to record with us. It was just unbelievable. Been offered our own television series. You know, there was very little hardship in that.
The emblem of our nation, when the bell was rung for starting, all the horses seemed impatient. I thought they never stood a crowd in their speed. Woo! All right, they whack, all the dope, all the diddly idle. There was 500,000 people there of all denominations. The Catholic, the Protestant, the Jew and Presbyterian. There was yet no animosity, no matter what persuasion. But fortune, hospitality, and cheese and fresh acquaintance with me whack. All the dope, all the diddly idle. With me whack, all the dope, all the diddly idle.
Yeah, but this is our best record. Carnegie Hall Live.
It was more fun for us than for the audience because at times we used to stand on that stage looking out at them
And they
doing their show for us.
That's right, yes.
Remember the night the fella's hat came tumbling down from the top balcony?
Aye.
And Tommy shouted up, "I hope your head wasn't in it."
And they tried to throw it up to him, and it became a great happening in the theatre.
First recording of Four Green Fields on that. Four Green Fields I wrote in a car going from Dundalk to Newry.
In your head?
In my head, yeah. And then when I got back home, back to Dundalk, I wrote it down on a piece of paper. 1968.
And try to take them from me. I had 5 strong sons. They fought to save my jewels. They fought and died.
photograph on this album, obviously, was taken in the Ulster Hall in Belfast. You can see by the crowd behind, that was one of the few places where they had the people stacked up behind us. I remember being very nervous walking into that situation and wondering what kind of a reception we were going to get. And I was just looking at the songs on the back here and realizing that we decided to do an entire evening of love songs.
Well, we weren't nearly as nervous as the police were.
Very diplomatic. Who was the policeman who used to stay in our dressing room while we were on stage?
He was a superintendent of the RIC, if there is such a thing. He was an officer of the RUC. And he had a big blackthorn stick. And he was there, I don't know what he was doing in our dressing room. He was
looking for a drink.
He was there, that's exactly what he did. When he got it, we had a bottle of whiskey. As soon as he got us on stage, he drank the bottle of whiskey.
That's right. A wonderful thing happened at that time. There was a bunch of students at Queen's University in Belfast and a bunch of Catholic students, and they invited a bunch of Protestant students to go in to hear these four boys singing these songs, you see. And they paid for the tickets, and they brought these, their friends, very reluctantly to the concert. And they had such a great time that the second time we were back in Belfast, the Protestant students bought the tickets and brought the Catholic fellas over to see. And a fella came in one night and gave us 4 black preceptory badges, which is a very secret organisation or something of the Orange Order. Do you remember that?
Yes.
But things were fairly good at that time. People were singing. We could do all kinds of songs there.
Albert Mooney sets it up, sir, all the boys are fighting for the rap at the door, they're ringing the bell, saying, oh, my true love, are you well? Out she comes as white as snow, rings on her fingers, bells on her toes. Oh, Johnny Murray said she'll die if she didn't get the fellow with the roving eye.
Let the wind and the rain and the hail blow high and the snow come travelling from the sky. She's as nice as apple pie and she'll get her own lad by and by. When she gets a lad of her own, she won't tell her ma when she comes home. Let them all come as they will, for it's Albert Mooney she loves still. I tell my ma when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull my hair, they throw my comb, but that's all right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Belfast City. She is a Courtin' 1, 2, 3. Please will you tell me who is he? Albert Mooney sets it up, sir, all the boys are fighting for. The rap at the door, they ring at the bell, saying, oh, my true love, are you well? Out she comes as white as snow, rings on her fingers, bells on her toes. Out Johnny Murray says she'll die if she didn't get the fellow with the roving eye. Let them all come as they will, for it's Albert Mooney she loves still.
I wanted everything. I just wanted to go everywhere, see everything, do everything, meet everyone. And obviously, you could never do it, but the trying was the fun, you know. And to come over here and do as much as you could and see everything. I don't know whether it was the movies or what that sort of set the seed in the imagination that there was lovely things outside that small little town in Tipperary, exciting things happening out in the world, and it's a pity to let them all go on and just spend your life in one spot, die there.
I'd never heard the Holy Ground until we were at a party in San Francisco with a bunch of priests, and they sang this song. Little did they realize that the Holy Ground was the red light district of Cork Harbour, otherwise I don't think they would have been singing it. And we didn't have the courage to tell them.
We didn't know either, to tell you the truth.
But it immediately caught our fancy, especially when it was possible to get an entire audience shouting.
The very fact that we never intended to be singers or professionals, and that we didn't care whether they liked us or not. The fact that we were going out there on the stage, not that they didn't like us or not, but we intended to go back to the theatre, and that was our job. And we were taking that very seriously, and that's probably why we weren't as successful at acting as we were at singing. Was that the theatre was very serious to us, whereas the music, that was what we did for fun. And that fun is the thing that communicates itself to an audience.
material came from a more innocent age. And in our very complex sort of society in New York especially, a lot of these songs come from nice little country villages, and they have the air of sort of past innocence in a pastoral setting. And they were kind of refreshing in a big hall in America. We were kind of young fellas, and we had a hell of a neck, and we were big chancers, and we were willing to go into the middle of any place, put our two big feet in the middle and say, here I am, and belt out a song. I keep telling myself that I'm going to retire and fish, and I love to fish in this little river by my house. And I'm telling the wife I'll sell these cows and that, and she said, I'm listening to you saying that for the last 10 years now, and you have no notion. I would no sooner have told her I was going to sell out everything and retire than I'd be making plans to go to America and do something, or making plans to get more cows or something. So I suppose I'll die in harness. I hope so.
Regrets, never. No, I'd do it all again. I enjoyed it so much. This has been a great life for me. And I've enjoyed the performing, enjoyed the theater, I've enjoyed the singing. And I'm looking forward to doing these concerts with Tommy and Paddy and Liam again.
I am enjoying singing even more now than when I started, because I think I have a better grip of it. I know more now what it's about. And I think I'll continue to do it until the day I die. I suppose it's in the blood, like, runs in the family like a wooden leg.
I'd love to be an architect. I'd love to be a writer. I'd love to be a filmmaker. Maybe even in this day and age, a rock singer.
You can't do everything, and there's regrets that you can't do everything, but you obviously can. I would have loved to stay at home maybe with my parents when they were old. That would have been nice. This is my father, Bob Clancy. And this is my mother, Johanna McGrath was her maiden name. But she went out, before they were married, she went out to America in 1911, and my father was to follow, but when the Titanic went down in 1912, no way was he going to cross the Atlantic. If she hadn't come back, Tom says he'd have been the mayor of Boston by now. Over here, my mother's parents, Thomas McGrath was her father, and her mother was Alice Comerford. Now, this is one picture now, but actually, it was two pictures put together. My mother, when she was in America, she had these two photographs of her parents, and she put them together and had them enlarged. And my grandmother always complained about it because the photograph of the grandmother was taken when she was much older than the grandfather. She thought that wasn't fair.
I will build my love a bower near yon pure crystal.
There's a picture of my mother, Sarah Makem, the source of many, 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 many good songs.
I will pile all the flowers of the mountain. Will you go, lassie?
And we all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme, all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? If my true love she were gone, I would surely find another where wild mountain tide goes around the blooming heather. lassie. And we all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather.
The summertime is coming.
Oh, the summertime is coming.
The trees are sweetly blooming.
And the trees are sweetly blooming.
The wild mountain thyme.
And the wild mountain thyme
Goes around the blooming heather.
goes around the blooming heather.
Our revels now are ended. These are actors, as I foretold you, are all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped palaces, the gorgeous towers, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which they inherit shall dissolve, and like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind, where such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. What I'm asking you in Shakespeare's words is, have you no homes to go to? We're going to leave you in Lovey. We'll see you, please God, 15 years from now, same time, same place, with a little song called The Parting Glass. Oh, all the money that e'er I spend it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night, and a joy be with you all. Oh, all the comrades that e'er I had, they are sorry for my going away. And all the sweethearts that e'er I had, they would wish me one more day to stay. But since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and I'll softly call good night and a joy